Greetings YouTube and welcome to my next weapons build. I found this as a piece of salvage. It's some kind of a handle. I'm not sure what, and it had a plastic wrap on it, which it doesn't anymore. And I saw it, and for some reason I thought Warhammer Head. Now, a Warhammer Head, a real one, would normally have a square head like that. Anywhere between an inch, maybe to 1.5 inches in width. Sometimes set square to the shaft, and some size set at a 45-degree angle, so it's kind of a diamond thing going on there. And it would normally have 4 points, and the 4 points on it are designed to help the hammer head bite into the armor of your opponent, as opposed to sliding off the armor. Now, hammers that you see like Mjolnir from the Marvel movies, wielded by Thor, those are not Warhammers. Those are fantasy things. They don't exist in the real world. Nobody has ever used a hammer like that in combat except for Thor, or maybe Captain America. But real world hammers were small heads, and they often had a back spike, but they were square. I don't have any solid square steel stock. I do have this, and this was the inspiration for this build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 2 points here. And I'm going to put a hole here so it has kind of a slight cutout design, because I just like the idea aesthetically. I'll probably have that much stick out of one side of this piece of tubing, which will become the shaft. 1-inch piece of tubing on this side, and then I'm going to cut it off here and then go up here with a back spike. I haven't decided if it's going to have, it may just have a back spike. I don't think I'm going to put a cutout on this side. There's not a whole lot of room there. So it'll just have a straight cut from there to the right down to where it goes into the slot that I'm going to put into this. So that will be the main striking head. That will be the back spike. I'm going to use a full 36-inch piece of tubing. This will be a two-handed weapon, and that is going to generate a lot of power here. Just an extraordinary amount of force on this. Now, this is hollow, so this gives me an opportunity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of stock, which is also a 1/4 inch thick. It's 1 inch, so it's exactly the same width as this. And I'm going to cut a piece down there. That's going to be long enough so it will go all the way down past this. And I'm going to put a point on it. Again, probably just a single cut like this. I'm going to put a point on it so that you can have thrusting coming out from the front if you so choose. And I will probably put the straight section like this. It'll be a right angle, so you have a slope here and then a slope going like that on the head. Obviously, it's not going to be very wide. The one issue I've got is that this is a 1-inch piece of tubing, so there's going to be space in here, because this is a 1/4 inch and that's a 1/4 inch, and I'll probably use a piece of this here, or maybe this, I haven't decided which, to make a spacer to go on the other side, because it's going to be an offset blade, because the blade's going to go on one side, the spacer will go on the other, and I'm going to drill one hole all the way through it. So there's only going to be one hole here for the fastener, and that's going to mean that there is going to be some space in here, because this is less than 1 inch. It's not by much, but less than 1 inch. And the things I'm putting inside are not going to add up to that. So I was thinking maybe I can get like the wedges, or make my own wedges like they use in an axe, and then just kind of tap those in there to firm everything up so it's not going to move, and I mean hammer them home hard enough that they're never going to move. Because I'd like to just have one hole through it for the whole fastening. Now I will also have 2 holes and a slot big enough for this. So that's going to be on this side, and then there'll be a single hole here to go all the way through. And I'm thinking I'll use a 5/16, probably use a 5/16, and I think I have some 5/16 threaded rod around here, and I'll use the 5/16 threaded rod to make the fastener here. So I'll just have to use one bit to drill 5/16 and 5/16. So that will be very cool. That won't have to be doing multiple things multiple different sizes. It's always convenient when you're using one size of drill or broaching bit because you don't have to switch things out a lot. So this is going to be a multi-stage process. So it's going to be figuring out where I want it. I was thinking, I think I may go down an inch. I kind of like that idea, coming down an inch like that. Because I think I go any further, make it look a little weird. So go down to about an inch, and then the spike will stick up probably like that. Like this spike will be stuck up probably about that far. We'll see how I think it looks when I get around to that. And I'm going to cut two little tiny slots, just cheek cuts, and then remove just enough so I can just tap that thing all the way in there nice and firmly. This isn't going to have an edge, it's just going to have sharpness, it's just going to have a point. So I should be able to get that in there. It's nice and snug, and I will not drill a hole in anything until I have the stuff in this done, because I would prefer to have everything attached in place before I start drilling, because that way you avoid having to make measurements, because making measurements sometimes can be and getting things to line up when you're trying to do things like internally is a nightmare. I take my word for it. You're better off doing one thing, making the next thing match it, then making the next thing match that, and doing it in that manner, unless you have some really precision equipment like a milling machine and things like that, and I don't. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut this up, get rid of this section here, and then mark where I'm going to drill here for that little cutout I mentioned, and then I will do my layout lines, drill that out, and then two straight cuts there to create the point, and I will grind these edges of those points to make them pointier than they would be just alone. So yeah, so again, multiple steps here. This will be the first thing I work on. Then I'll work on the slot. Once I have this and the slot done, then I'll work on the point, and then I'll get the whole thing assembled with a 5/16 fastener. And like I said, maybe some little metal wedges. Either I make them, or maybe I go to the store and pick up, because you can buy wedges for your axes, and get some of those for this process. We'll see which works out better, because I do have some little pieces of steel kicking around here, so I may be able to grind some of these down into like the wedge shapes that I would require. We will see. That could be tedious, very tedious. We'll find out if I want to tackle that. All right, so work on this first. Time to cut this off, do some layouts, and then start the drilling and the cutting process. So here we have the first of the layout lines all set up. So I came down the center of the bar, and then I came across the same amount because I want to get this 45-degree angle, so that's going to be a square. And then I laid those down, and then right in the middle I have made a small indentation with my nail set, and that is where I'm going to drill a hole with my broaching bit. It's going to be right in that spot, so it should be a nice clean hole, should have no problem. These broaching bits usually do a very good job on this kind of soft steel, because this stuff is not real hard. It cut really nice with my my cutoff wheel on my angle grinder. And at the moment I'm using Porter cable cutoff discs, and they're really performing nicely. I really believe that these things might be better quality than the stuff I normally get from like Harbor Freight. And I only paid $15 for a set of 15, so it's $1 a piece. So I mean, they are disposable, but they still did a really nice job cutting through this stuff rather quickly and cleanly. So here we have the striking head. That's what I want it to look like, just like that. So it's all set. And now I have the layout lines. That's going to be the shaft right there. So this is going to be sticking out an 1.5 inches. That I like the visual scale of that, 1 3/4. And this is going to be the shaft right there. And then this line is going to be the section that I cut off. So that's going to be the point when I'm finished. So now I have to cut this section here off of this piece, and then finish the polish it up, and then put a chamfer on it. And again, I'm not going for an edge, I'm going for a point. This is supposed to be designed for penetrating armor or humans, but it's not designed for cutting. So this is most definitely piercing points, not cutting points. So, or cutting edges, I should say. All right, so now I gotta get my cutoff wheel back on there because I had taken it off so I could use a flap wheel to clean this up and then make that cut. I really wish I had some kind of a guide I could use, but I've tried using a guide in the past and I just cut the guide. So I'm not really sure what the best thing to use so I could get a really clean cut, because mostly I do this, I get as close to that line as I can with by eye, and then I clean it up with either a grinding disc and then the flap wheel, or just a flap wheel, depending on how close I get to the line. But I would like to get some kind of a guide that's hard, that would let me slide along the edge so that I could lay down the first couple of passes. Because once you've got yourself a groove, you don't need the guide anymore. Once you've got the groove, then you can just bring your cutting wheel back and forth across the groove and you're golden. But you need that groove before so you have something to travel in. So I'm just going to freehand it and see how close I get. Maybe I worried too much, because that's really darn close to that line and I just freehanded it. So that's cool. I'm not going to have to get the grinding wheel out. I'm just going to use the flap wheel to clean it up just a smidge and then put the 2 angles on it I want. And I'm really happy with that. That came out really nice. Maybe I'm getting good at this. Who knows? So there we have the completed striking head. So that part of the job is now completed. So now I have to make a slot in the tube, in the square step tube, and so I'll have to drill 2 holes for that, as well as a hole for the cross piece. For the bolt that's going to go, or the threaded rod that's going to go through there. That will be the next task. But yeah, this came together nicely. I'm quite happy with this. I know it's not a conventional Warhammer shape. It's close. I mean, because if you had 2 of these going like 90 degrees to each other, that would be almost a perfect Warhammer shape. It really would. But that would really require welding, which I don't have the ability to do at this point in my life. But that would make a perfect Warhammer head. It really would. Maybe someday. That would be kind of cool. But at the minute, I'm going to work on laying out some of the marks in the tube so that I can get a slot. I'm hoping exactly the width of this, which is 1.5 inches. So I'm going to have to do some math, because I have to figure out where the 5/16 inch holes need to be, so that the distance from the outside edge of one 5/16 hole and the outside edge of the other 5/16 hole is 1.5 apart from each other. So that's going to take a little bit of math on my part, and I hate math. So I have the 2 holes in, and now I have the 2 marks where that is 1/4 inch wide. The problem is I can't do a direct plunge cut, because I'm using a 4.5 inch cutting wheel, which is of course far wider than that. So I'm going to take out as much as I can out of that, make 2 slots, as much as I can, and then I'm going to have to find another way to make the rest of the cut after I have laid the groove down, because that will at least give me a guide to work with. And I'm going to have to do the same thing on the other side as well. And then I'll have to probably clean this up with a file and square everything up, because this is a radius on either end, and that's not the shape I need. But again, I can do that with a hand file. Because I'm trying to get as snug a fit as I can possibly achieve with this head. I want to get it nice and tight and snug. I still have to drill the cross hole for the through bolt, but that is not something I'm worrying about at the moment. Right now I'm concentrating on this. So clamp this down and try to get as close as I can to those lines, and take as much out without overshooting and then nicking the outside edges too much. I don't want to do that. I'd like to get this as clean as I can get it. That would be ideal. But we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm getting better with an angle grinder, but they're still not the most precise instruments in the universe. Alright, so that is where the striking head is going to be when I'm done. It is in there. It is nice and snug. And there's just a very little space, very little movement, and it's going to be a heck of a lot less movement once I get a threaded rod through here, and I get a blade here and a spacer on the other side, and then, a blade here, spacer on the other side, and then whatever that wedge is, I'm going to have to come up with of some variety. I think I'm probably going to have to make my own, because I don't think I'm going to be able to find one that'll fit in this space so I can hammer it in there. That's going to be a major pain in the butt. I may have to make a tool to get the wedge in place so I can hammer it in, unless I've got a really narrow chisel, cold chisel of some kind. I don't know, I'll have to see if I do. I just discovered, however, before I did any drilling for this, because I'm going to drill this, and then I'm going to touch this. So just, leave a divot so I know where the hole is, and then I'll pull it out so I can drill it properly. But I just discovered that this is not 3 5/16. This is 3/8, 375, not 312. So rather than go get more, I'm going to have to do this in stages. So I'm going to drill a small hole and then a larger hole, and slowly, ramp things up one step at a time. That's how I will do this for safety's sake. It's just the best way to do it. It's the cleanest and safest way to do it. You do it in stages. So I'll have to get a smaller drill bit out for my drill press at the moment, and I'm going to drill this right like this so that I can drill through the tube and then kiss the striking head, and that way I'll have transferred the mark from this to this. Because again, if I only have to lay things out once, and then I can transfer that data from here to here without any additional measurements, I get more accuracy and I get less frustration. And that is a really good recipe for a pleasant project. Make your life as simple as you can. Don't make it overly complicated. Alrighty, so let's start drilling this hole fairly small, nice and slow, so I can get in there, mark this, finish this one cross piece as 3/8, and then I can start working on that one. You know how happy I was with this? How I cut that by eye and it came out almost exactly the way I wanted it. I was so thrilled and pleased with myself, and I thought, I'm actually starting to get a handle on this kind of thing. I'm actually doing this thing properly. Well, yeah, about that. Well, promptly after that, I drilled this hole the wrong size twice. That side was the wrong size, and then that size was the wrong size, because it was supposed to be that size, and it's not fitting. Also not that size. Yeah, this is 3/4, this is 3/8, and that is a 1/2 inch. And this is somewhere between the two. But it's not, it's bigger than 3/8. I'm not happy about this. However, I got this. I just happened to find this. I'm digging around inside my own collection of nuts and bolts, which I have picked up at, thrift at yard sales and estate sales and flea market, stuff like that. I think this was an estate sale find. So this is a 1/2 inch bolt, and I got 2 nuts, so we're good there. And what I'll do is I'll cut this off to the length I want, because what I want is, I want it to be an inch proud of when it's in there. So this is set. I have to open up this one to the size I need. So I'm not that's going to be a pain in the butt, but I'm going to open that one up to a 1/2 inch, and that's going to be a slow, ugly slog, but I can achieve it. Now, I got myself thinking, I don't need a spacer on the other side, because this is going to be in the middle, and then we're going to put a blade, a point on the other side. And all I really need is something that goes between that blade and the space in between. And if I put the blade against this, that means I just have to fill in the gap between. I have to fill the gap in that's like on this side of the blade. So you'll have this, you'll have a blade coming out the end, and then there's going to be a little gap. So I just need to fill that little space, which however it is. And I've got this piece of steel here, which is obviously not doing anything. And if I can figure out what that is, and then this is, I think this is already the right width? Yeah, it's already the right width. So this will already fit in here. So all I have to do is deburr this, figure out what width it needs. So I may have to use my flat wheel and shave this down in thickness. And we'll see how close I am. Because if I can get it to be roughly wedge shape in this manner, it's already wedge shape in that direction, wedge shape in this, I can just hammer this thing home all the way in, and that will act as a spacer between the wall and the blade. And I'll do it so that this here is going to be like, it'll be like this, filling in that space straight. You just hammer it right in there, and that will fill it in, and then we'll be good. I'm not going to have to worry about anything moving, because this is a one-time feature. This will go in and it will never come out. Obviously, this would be the last thing I do on this job, is to hammer this home, literally hammer this home. So at the moment, the next stage is going to open this up to 1/2 inch from whatever size it is now. I still have to modify that. But that was always going to have to be modified. I was always going to have to modify the threaded rod, so that has not altered the plan in the least. It's just a thicker rod. I'm always going to have to do that. So this is also not a change in the plan. And after I get this opened up to where I'm happy with it, then I work on making the blade. The first thing I'll do is figure out how deep I want the section that goes inside the shaft. And I'm actually going to make it pretty deep, because if I discover that I don't like the overall fastening characteristics, I will then drill a smaller hole, and to go through the blade, the point rather, that's sticking at the end, to hold it in place, if I'm not happy with the way it comes together. If I'm happy with the way that it comes together, I don't have to worry about that. But I'd like to make it long enough so that if I don't like it, I can come down here and drill through here, missing this, and just going right through there. So that would be the ideal. So I need to figure out how deep I want it, and then do those cheat cuts I mentioned, and then figure out how long I want the point to be. So this is the next stage. Things did not come out quite the way I wanted to, but thanks to my pack rack characteristics, I have the bolt I need right here already, and I don't have to go out to the hardware store again, because I've already been to 2 hardware stores today. I don't want to go back. Alright, getting that to be the correct width was a pain in the butt, because I had to reduce this about 42 thou on a side or so. So it just fits inside now, because the inside diameter of this is 908, so this is slightly less than 908, because, you know, the vagaries of tubes and stuff. I have deburred the inside of this tube with my power file. Love my power file. So this everything nice and smooth. I have just placed a mark here, which is where I'm going to brighten that up a little before I do any drilling, and I'm going to have to drill a 1/2 inch hole right through there. Now the problem I've discovered is that I deburred this wedge, and I'm like, ooh, I got this wedge, and the space I have to work with is tiny. I mean, it's like that. It's like a 1/16 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. So I'm going to have to come up with some kind of a wedge that's much thinner than I've got right here. And I don't know what the hell I'm going to use. I may end up using just like washers or something, because this may be, like, this washer may be the width I want. We're going to find that out, because if I can get that, if I can polish this down just a smidge to make it a smidge smoother, How I'm going to do that, I don't know without getting myself killed, because I don't have a way to really hold that effectively. Maybe I can use a magnet. I've got some powerful magnets. If I can use a magnet to hold that so I can kind of polish it up a little. I don't know. We're going to figure that out, because this may be what I have to pound in there, because that space is really tiny between the space between this blade, or this future blade or point, and that wall. It's just so tiny. Alrighty, so I'm going to drill my 1/2-inch hole. I was able to line this up because of my center punches. These are very handy. I picked these up at a yard sale for $2. And it's a complete set. Well, it's missing one, this big one here, and I don't care. The rest of them for $2. How can you go wrong? You know what I mean? Just a great set. These are I don't use these for usually to make the final mark, but just the initial mark, and then I brighten it up with my nail set. But for finding centers, you can't beat this. It's also very good for just lining things up, because you can always find the diameter I need to just line things up for visual checking and stuff before you go and put the threaded rod and stuff in place, or the bolts and things. Very, very handy. If you can get yourself a set of these, highly recommended. We are almost there. So we've got the hole. It's the right width. Got the nice little cheek cut, so this is going to sit right on that. And I've decided to go with that kind of a point. I played with a number of different designs, and that seems to be the best option. So that's 4 inches from here to the tip. This overall section is 6 inches long. This section down here is 4 inches long. So if I have to put a second hole in here to get some additional security, I can do so. I've got the area to play with. I'm hoping I don't have to, but we're going to find that out. So now I have to get my angle grinder with a cutoff wheel and cut those 2 pieces off, and then clean it up, and then shape it with the type of angle I want to put on it. And on this one, I'd like to get a fairly consistent 45-degree grind, so we can get a pretty decent point on this. I don't want it needle sharp, because that just bends over. I wanted to have it a little bit of a body here, so it has some stability. So that's going to be the next stage. Cut those 2 things off and then begin the final shaping. And once that is finished, it's assembly time, because I'm not wrapping this at all. This is a 1-inch tube, and for me, this is the right size to hold with my bare hands, or with gloves, I should say. I would be wearing gloves probably. And then assembly, and then see what kind of a spacer I need in there to wedge in there to really firm things up. We're going to see what happens. So there we have the completed point. Like I said, I wanted to have a little bit of beef left in there, because I don't want it to be too needle point, because that's just going to break on you. And now I need to cut this off right here on this dark line, and go zoom right through there, and then it's a matter of putting a point on both ends, which I'm going to just do with my flap wheel. I'm going to see how well that works at putting a point on it, because I only want to have about, I don't know, we'll see, 3/4 of an inch maybe, something like that. Not a whole lot. We're going to find that out once I start playing with it and see how well it comes out. So first thing we need to do is cut it off. So here we have the center threaded rod with the 2 spikes on the end, and technically that's still a bolt. Not much of a bolt, but it's still technically a bolt. So I might use that for something, who knows? Now, I was able to do one of these ends fairly quickly, because I was able to put this rod into my power drill, my hand drill, and then just rotate it and push it against this flap wheel. Admittedly, probably not the safest or smartest thing I've ever done in my life, but it did make one of the points very rapidly. But because the point was there, I could not reverse that and do the other end, because there wasn't enough for the chuck on the drill to grasp, so I had to do the other one by hand. But still, saved me some time on one end. So now it's assembly, bolting, all that's happy horse pucky, and then we find out if I do need this wedge or not, and how do I make it the right size to fit in the gap I need to fill. Now, assembly. And there we have one completed Warhammer with spikes in every direction. This is definitely dangerous. No matter where you hit somebody with this thing, it is going to hurt. Now, I actually technically probably didn't need to put anything in here, but I did shove a little washer in there, and I actually got to use the little wedge, which now I don't know where I put it. Here it is. I actually got to use the little wedge I made as the tool that shoved that right in there. So got to use that as a tool anyway, so that's kind of cool. So there she be. I'm quite happy with this. Came out quite nice. If it's not perfect, you know, this is not quite the diameter I had originally planned, but frankly, I think a 1/2 inch diameter works well as far as the aesthetic goes. The overall appearance and scale and everything. I think the 1/2 inch bolt probably works the best. I like this. I like how this came out. This is very simple, but I like the fact, you know, it's nice and long, and it's going to have a nice deep penetration, and you can thrust with this thing, you can swing with this thing. Even if you have to get into close quarter with someone, you could choke up on it and still use one of these points to try to harm someone, or like get under a helmet or something like that with it. No, not in a post-apocalyptic setting. Many people won't even have helmets, or at least not the ones that would completely cover their faces. But so there you go. So now it's going to take it outside, get some pictures, and then call it a day. I'm quite happy, and I even have the materials for next project. I already got those picked up. Those, all I have to do is stop by Fastenal to pick up some acorn nuts. But yes, so thank you for being here for this particular build. It was quite fun, if it was a little longer than I thought it was going to take. I learned a few things. I figured out that I am quite good at cutting some straight lines when I really pay attention. These all came out exactly the way I wanted to. I'm very happy with them. I almost want to put a couple of holes in here just for fun, but I'm going to hold off on that because I'm tired. And being tired last week was probably what caused me to make those holes the wrong size twice. Yeah, twice. So, check out my DeviantArt, check out my Instagram. Thank you for being here, and I hope that you'll be here for next build.